Good evening and welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting on Monday, October 21st. We'll call the meeting to order at 5:30 PM. Beth, could we have a roll call, please?
Select Chair, Mr. DeRoche.
Here.
Select Vice Chair, Mr. Coy.
Here.
Selectman, Mr. Gifford.
Present.
Selectwoman, Ms. Costa. Here. Selectman, Mr. Britton.
Present.
And please note for the record, we have Town Manager, Mr. Colby, with us, and some of our Budget Committee members will be joining us.
Thank you, Beth. If everyone could rise for the pledge. John, would you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. All right, Mark, we're gonna have public comment first.
Want
So
me to step?
if someone comes up, you can step back, please. That would be great. Is there anyone here from public comment? Just come up and state your name and address.
Yes, I know the drill. Nolan Pelletier, 24 North Ave. Thank you for having me tonight. What I'm going to say is nothing new. I've been before this board multiple times. I just want you to keep in mind this is a joint meeting. There's a lot of people in Plastow that are feeling the effects of inflation, and you need to take a serious look at the town's spending, and increasing it is just going to hurt the people that are in this town. So I know it's always a want versus a need, but it really has to be looking at it through a microscope and a want. I know I've said this a million times, and I've come before both the Budget Committee and the Board of Selectmen. And when I talk about cutting the budget, the topic of schools always comes up, and you say that you're not the brunt of taxes, and it is the schools, which is correct. You will have the school reps here tonight. I don't think I need to tell any of you what's going on with the school. We have a very large surplus that's in question. And I think you owe it to the taxpayers of this town to make a difference. And maybe you can do that by, I know you do not have any authority over the school, the district school, but maybe you can put forward a motion requesting that our school board reps, I know it would just be a request, do a forensic audit of the actual school system. And I think you at least owe that to the taxpayers, whether it is legitimate or illegitimate. Someone needs to go through and look, because there is a lot of money out there, and for it to just kind of come up now and be an issue and nobody say anything about it, it's kind of, it needs to be looked into. So if you do nothing else but that tonight, that would make me very happy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pelletier.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wishing to comment? All right. Let's move on to our agenda. First up, we have reorganize. I'm going to move that to the end, and we'll deal with that at the end of the meeting. And next up, we have energy presentation from Revision about the landfill solar array. We have Mark Zankel?
Zankel, close enough.
Zankel, sorry.
No worries.
Welcome.
Thank
How
you.
doing?
Great. Thank you for having me. Yes. Hi, everybody. I am Mark Zankel. I'm the Director of Community Solar for Revision Energy, and I appreciate you having me here tonight. I'm here on behalf of Revision and also my co-owner, Michael Bartner, who has also presented and met with your energy committee, and also was out on the landfill site. He's up in Lincoln, Maine tonight with the town of Lincoln, also talking about a formerly disturbed property. So he couldn't be in two places at one time. So tonight I'm going to cover three things. I'll just give you a little background on Revision, tell you about what is the solar opportunity on the Plastow landfill, and then just touch on some of the ways that Revision works with communities in our service area who are interested in exploring solar. Feel free to stop me along the way, and also happy to answer questions at the end as well. So let me just start with a little bit about Revision. Revision is a mission-driven, employee-owned solar company. We have offices and operations in New Hampshire, Maine, and Massachusetts. Our roots are in solar, and today we're at the core construction company, and we help communities, families, businesses, and nonprofits access the financial and the environmental benefits of solar energy. We do this by developing and installing solar arrays, heat pumps and mini splits, battery systems, and electric vehicles. Today, we're 500 employees strong. And in 2017, Revision became 100% employee-owned, which basically means that when we meet and exceed our customers' expectations, the company thrives. As an employee-owned business, if the company thrives, the employee co-owners share in the benefits. And so for you as a potential customer, this means that you could expect every Revision co-owner who works on your project to have like a real sense of responsibility and pride and shared interest in the success of your project. Yeah. It is an ESOP, yeah. So it's which stands for Employee Stock Ownership Plan. So it's yes, we are in the ESOP and 100% of shares. Yeah, if an employee leaves, so you're essentially, as a co-owner, you receive each year shares under the terms of the ESOP. Shares are distributed to all co-owners. And if you leave the company, if you're fully vested in your shares, then the company will buy your shares for the then current share price. And the share price is independently determined through an external auditor every year. Yeah, sure. It's great. I love it. I rarely get questions about employee ownership. So there's a lot of solar companies out there. One thing that I value about Revision is that we are local. Our employee owners, co-owners live in New Hampshire, Maine, and Massachusetts. And you can see our office locations here with our primary New Hampshire branch is over in Brentwood, not too far away. We've been around for 21 years, which is a pretty good long run for a solar company. We've done more than 16,000 clean energy projects, installed over 200 megawatts of solar, and saved our customers close to $60 million now, kept a lot of carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. I'm not going to go through all these. I'll just say it's a good company, lots of recognition locally and beyond. #1 rooftop solar installer in New England for the past 6 years, and a whole bunch of other things. It's a good company. And we've done a lot of projects with municipalities, over 150 across our service area, again, Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts. And we're talking about your capped landfill today. So I will say we have some particular expertise in landfills and other disturbed and contaminated properties. I'll show you some photos of a few projects that we have already done or are doing. And in fact, we have 5 landfills that we are currently working on in New Hampshire right now, including in the towns of Exeter, Jaffrey, Hooksett, Kingston, and Bedford. So these are just some examples of municipal projects that we've done. You can kind of get a feel for them. They're anything from rooftop police buildings, schools, to large ground mounts, kind of across the board of the kinds of projects that we've done. And these are some of the large projects that we are currently developing in New Hampshire right now. So Unitil Utilities, that is the largest project to date in New Hampshire. We are doing it for Unitil, competitive bid. That is under construction right now. Rockingham County, that is also under construction right now, 4.3 megawatt array. Town of Hooksett landfill, that one is in development. Town of Kingston landfill in development. Town of Exeter landfill under construction. Town of Bedford in development. So lots of related projects. And then we have built 9 done 9 landfill and
Now, for
brownfill
the-
projects
for
in
what
Maine.
we're looking at here for the landfill, what would we be the closest to out of these projects?
In terms of like the type or the
The
size?
size, what you're looking to do.
Yeah, I guess probably like you're a little larger than Exeter and you're a bit smaller than Rockingham. So I'll get to a little bit more, but you're in the. It
Okay.
depends on sort of a couple of different scenarios I'll show you,
Yeah.
but and every landfill is different because we have to look at the topography of the landfill and the slopes, and then there's. I've been on a lot of landfills. They're actually kind of interesting to walk around on. And some of them have pretty large areas that you can do solar on, and some have a very small cap or very steep slopes. And so I would say you're kind of like right in the middle of the range, which
Okay.
is not a bad place to be. So let's talk about your landfill. Here's a nice aerial photo. And before we visit a property, we do a pretty extensive desktop analysis. We have some good software that we're able to use that looks at different kinds of geospatial data layers to evaluate it for its solar potential. So this is topography and wetlands. These are 2-foot contours. So this looks like it's a much bigger mountain than it really is because these are very small contour intervals. But we look at contours because, with landfill solar, the key thing is you have to protect the integrity of the cap. And so there are very strict rules and regulations and permitting processes. And so we look at slopes that are less than 8%, which is what we have found through developing a number of landfills, is the sort of acceptable range from a regulatory standpoint and from a cap integrity standpoint.
I have 2 questions in regard to that. Does your contract hold you wholly responsible for any damage done to the cap?
It does, yeah. The lease agreement will hold the array owner, any developer and owner, the impact to the cap that happens as a result of the solar development.
Okay, and then the other question is I was around when we put the cap on, and that cap is probably down 6 or 8 feet from where it was initially. How do you compensate for that kind of, you're looking at a product that's probably, you're looking out 25, 30 years.
Yep.
How do you take care of that problem of sinking and not having the array come undone?
That's a great question. So one thing I'm going to do is if there's questions that I feel like I'm not an engineer, so if there's questions that you have that I feel like I'm not the best one to answer, I'm going to write them down and I can follow up and email you
Perfect.
responses. I do know that what I've heard, having been out on a number of landfill caps with public works directors and also with the regulators, is that there's a significant amount of that sinking and compression that happens over the first couple of decades after the landfill is capped, and then that compaction slows quite a bit because essentially it has settled. So we don't expect that same rate that you've experienced the first 25 years. But that's about as far as I want to go
Okay,
without
sure, understood.
feeling like I'm saying more than I'm qualified to say.
Perfect.
So let me just jot that one down and follow up. One of the early things that we look at is what we call interconnection. So when you build a solar array of this scale, a community scale solar array, you have to interconnect into the grid. This is the single biggest unknown that any solar developer and any host of a solar farm has at this stage in a project, which is, can you interconnect? Does the substation that this feeds into have capacity? And how much is the utility going to charge you to interconnect? We have seen utility interconnection costs of as little as $150,000 and as much as over $1.5 million. And in that range, that is the single biggest thing that determines, is a project buildable? Is it financially viable or not? And we don't know on the front end until we go through the whole utility interconnection process where they do a study, goes into a black box, And then they come out and they say, this is what are the upgrades that are needed, this is what they cost, and then we have a little haggle fest, and eventually they tell us what it's going to be, and we determine if we can build it. But we start with what all the utilities have online, how much is on that current substation, and that tells you how much capacity is available. And the good news here is that you have a very promising situation. So the hosting capacity on the left, 10.6, that is how much capacity is available at this substation, 10.6 megawatts. And there's only 0.3 of a megawatt currently interconnected. That's really good. So we do a lot of solar projects. It's very rare to see something like that. This is like, you want to be in this situation because often those substations are maxed out or there's very little available. This has the potential, if this is accurate, which you don't find out until you do the study, to be able to absorb the power generated by the system. That's a really good situation to be in. As I said, Michael took a site visit, went out there with Dee and Dan Garlington, took some photos. Some of you, maybe you've all been to your landfill, but some of you have been out there. It's very nice. And so we did 2 designs. We use a software called Helioscope, which is a solar engineering and design software. We did one that is on the, I would call it more conservative. And so you see that up top. And so, sorry, that's right behind you, but you've got to hopefully print out. We feel that's a conservative estimate, 2.38 megawatts. That's 4,000 solar modules, 20 inverters. Whenever you see a solar project, you'll see it in DC and AC, direct current and alternating current. Sun comes in, it hits the solar array, it produces DC, direct current energy, then it goes through an inverter, gets inverted to AC, which is what goes into your house or your building or into the distribution grid. So we feel pretty good about the buildability of the area on the cap that we're showing here. But if we reach an agreement with the town and we get our engineers out there and working on it, it's possible we may be able to get more solar. And so we also showed an optimistic or sort of a larger potential system size, which would go into some of the wooded area just north of your cap. And we show that as the potential of up to 3.3 megawatts. So I just give this to you to kind of bookend what the possibilities are, what an array might end up here at. We would figure that out through the process of developing the project. But I think this is a reasonable ballpark for you to think about. Probably not much less than 2.3, ideally. And I don't think we would be likely to see much more than 3.3 or so. A little bit about how do you design and build a solar project on a landfill. So again, key is maintain the integrity of the cap. And we're really careful in our construction. One of the nice things about where you are now is we've built a bunch of solar projects on landfills, as have other solar companies. And so we have some pretty good experience. The regulators have good experience. So everything is done to not penetrate the cap. So you can see we have racking that we don't have posts that go down into the ground. We don't have screws that go down into the ground. These sit on top of the cap. In the upper right-hand photo, you see there are these rock baskets. They're called gabion baskets. They're basically almost like a lobster cage. They're filled with local crushed rock, and those are used to ballast the system. They're designed and engineered to withstand hurricanes, force winds. So they have been shown to work in we're not a high hurricane risk area here, but we're not a no hurricane risk. So we overbuild them. They used to do concrete pads, which you can see on some of these, but we now rely primarily on the gabion baskets. And then you can see the conduit runs above ground. We do some bridging, again, just to make sure that we can minimize the disturbance. We use low PSI four-wheel tracked vehicles that are rather different from what we would do on a typical solar array, sort of everything to minimize the disturbance and the impact to the cap. And it's all done under the permitting, pretty lengthy permitting process that we go through with New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. So how does a community solar project come to life? We identify the suitable land. If you looked across New Hampshire at what proportion of the land actually could support a solar project like this, it's pretty minuscule. It is a very small strike zone. We then work with willing landowners, public and private. If we can reach an agreement and align our goals, great. Then we go into design and engineering, do our due diligence, interconnection process, permitting, and secure financing. So that's anywhere from 3 to 5 years. It's not a short process. I wish it was faster, but there's some things like the utility interconnection studies that we don't control the timeline on. You're in Unitil, which is good. They're faster than Eversource. And so that's to your benefit, but we have no control over that timeline. And in this section, we invest our own money. This is our sort of developer's risk, anywhere from $100,000 to $300,000 to do this work to essentially see, can we build this project at a price that works financially for a solar project? And if we can, we have a pretty good track record. Then the construction process is about a year. It's anywhere from, we'll say about $3.5 million per megawatt of solar. So anywhere from $3 to $15 million investment that Revision and our investors would make. And then we energize the project. So with the town of Plastow, if you're interested in this, which I hope you are, this is a land lease. And the way it works is that Revision in the town, and I know you had a previous proposal from Walden, so some of you may be familiar with this, but we signed a 5-year land option agreement. The reason for 5 years, again, is that we hope it doesn't take that long to determine if we can build a project. Revision doesn't make money as a company or stay in business unless we can build solar projects. And so we don't want to take it any longer, but there are just things around permitting interconnection that we don't control the timeline on. So we signed a 5-year land option agreement. We hope it takes 3 years. We give you a modest annual option payment in return for giving us the opportunity to go and try to develop this project and see if it works. We undertake all those activities. We do the permitting work. We do the interconnection work with the town's approval. And once the project development is complete and we determine the project is financially viable, then we execute a land lease agreement with the town. That lease will have been negotiated as part of the option, so you'll know exactly what it looks like, all the terms of it. Then the project gets built and energized, and then you receive the lease payments going forward. Revision has boots on the ground here in New Hampshire to take care of the systems. We do operations and maintenance on 95% of the systems that we build. Sorry, I'm getting a restart on the computer. Just give me a second here. An owner could decide to go with somebody else as their O&M provider, but we service about 95% of the systems that we build. So what's in it for you? We put together, as I said, these two scenarios. In reality, the end will be probably neither of these. It will be somewhere. It'll be something in the middle. But these give you a nice ballpark, preliminary numbers to give you a ballpark. And if you want to move forward, we can prepare a more formal proposal with more concrete numbers for your board. The conservative scenario shows a year one lease of $23,800. So we base this on the system size. The larger the system, the larger the lease payment. The optimistic scenario you can see has a year one lease of $33,500. When you carry that forward over the course of a 25-year term, that would result in revenue to the town of at least 750,000 on the conservative scenario, over $1 million on the optimistic. And then our leases are 25 years with 2 5-year renewals. That's a standard solar farm lease that you would see. And so over the 35-year period, you're looking at 1.2 to north of 1.6 million.
Well, I feel good about that. I'll be dead. And 105 years old. God.
Mark, what happens if we get to the 35-year term at that point? Does the town take ownership? Do we extend? Is there another option to extend with revision?
Yeah, great question. So the life of a solar panel, they're kind of amazing little pieces of technology. The National Renewable Energy Lab shows solar panels to derate, sort of lose production at about less than 0.5% a year. And so there are panels that are 40 years old that are still producing at 80% of their capacity of the first day that they were in operation. So at 35 years, or probably a little bit beforehand, the town and the owner of the array are going to have a conversation, and the owner of the array at that point might say, hey, this is great. This thing is producing great. Would you like to extend the lease? And you would negotiate terms of a lease. No obligation on either party. They might say, hey, would you like to buy it at its surplus value? And, you can generate the power, you can take the energy. And you would have that choice. Or what they're required to do in the lease is to decommission. And so assuming that if neither of those things happened, the owner of the array is required to decommission the system, which means remove everything that was on site. And the nice thing about solar is that in a solar panel, which is mostly glass and metal, over 95% of a solar panel is recyclable and or reusable. And then conduit, it's pretty valuable these days. So most of it will have a life and a market for it, but the owner is required to decommission it.
Mark, what about technology? In other words, 20 years ago, a solar panel versus today's solar panel is markedly different in the amount of energy it can take in. So 10 years from now, or 15 years from now, and these panels, let's say, are obsolete compared to what's on the market, how do you handle that? Because it behooves you to have a better panel, and it behooves the town for you to have a better panel.
It's a great question. It comes up pretty often, and the way that I think about it is this. Revision's been putting in solar systems for 20 years now. And we don't have a lot of customers at this point asking to repower, essentially, to replace their panels because they're still producing at a pretty high rate. And so they're still economically very sort of either generating revenue or generating significant cost savings for the customer. And the return on investment of replacing those panels isn't high enough.
Okay.
So the panels are like a panel today, the same size panel will produce more energy than the exact same size panel that was put in 15 years ago, but not so much more that it would be a good investment to replace it.
Gotcha.
But at some point, that's another option at year 35 is that the owner of the array says, we want to repower this system. We think it's worth it. Would you like to do a new lease? And so that's certainly a possibility, but it has to be, the incremental power generation has to be worth the significant upfront capital
Right, the return on
cost.
investment has to be there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And how much panels are going to be, everything's per watt in solar. So how much a panel is per watt 20 years from now, your guess is as good as mine, but probably cheaper than it is today.
Yeah.
Mark, I have a question for you. How long does Revision actually, on an average, own the farm itself?
Yeah.
You're going to be selling them off at some point, and this contract will move along to the next owner. But what's your average lifespan that you guys control the actual farm?
So most of the farms that we do at this scale, we don't own.
Okay.
We work with mission-aligned investor partners they're in business to essentially finance and own solar farms. And so we do the project development, we construct the project, we do the operations and maintenance, but they're actually owned by one of our sort of in the region mission-aligned investor partners. So we typically don't own projects at this scale. I say typically because there are certain exceptions, but at this scale, we're not an investment company. We're a construction company at our core.
All right.
Almost done. I can whip through the last couple slides here. Just want to end with community engagement. Just kind of go back to the beginning. Like, Revision is a very unusual company from my experience. Super committed as a B corporation. That's really committed to balancing people, planet, and profit. Very committed to putting the community in our community solar farms. So we provide lots of opportunities for the communities that we work with. We have a full-time educator on our staff who goes into schools and does curriculum, if you want it. We do ribbon cuttings. We do touch a truck events. So people can get out and see what's in there. What does that panel look like? We've done some apprenticeship. We have a great apprenticeship program for electricians at Revision in general. And so if you move forward and you are interested in some community engagement opportunities, we can customize a community engagement program that is of interest and makes sense to Plasto. So last slide, which is just to kind of wrap. The opportunity is a land lease. There's no cost to the town, which is nice. For the first 5 years or a few years, you hang out while we figure out if this is buildable. And then if it is, and we hope it is, and we got a pretty good track record, we would execute the lease and you start to generate the real revenue. You don't have any operations and maintenance responsibilities. So you really just getting a check every year in return for hosting this solar farm. The one other thing I didn't put on here, but I'll just say is, there are some towns that we have to have energy users associated with the solar farm. So it could be that your town wants to be an off-taker, which means you would assign some of your town accounts to the solar farm, and we would give you a discount, essentially a rebate payment. I didn't want to go into that today because we can talk about that down the road. The land lease is really, I think, the thing for you to be thinking about whether it makes sense for you. If it does, we'd love to work with you. The next step would be to put together, we can give you a formal proposal. We would give you an option agreement to have your town council look at. And then I don't know, some select boards have been already granted the authority by their town meeting to negotiate long-term real estate deals. Others have to take a town meeting. I defer to you on what you need to do.
Yeah, anything over 5 years, I believe we need to go to warrant article.
Okay, yeah. So you would probably take the lease agreement. You could do the option, and then you would take the lease agreement to town meeting.
Yes.
Yeah, and we can give you template language that other towns have used and sort of do anything we can to support that, give you information that would be useful. And I think that's all I got. I appreciate you giving me all the time and good questions. Happy to answer more questions or go back to any
Does
of these
anyone
slides.
else have any questions?
Just one.
Yes, Daryl.
Do we get taxes for this? Is the property leased and we get a tax from the provider? A land
On
tax?
some cases, there is an optional payment in lieu of taxes that's
Okay.
negotiated. I don't know.
Yeah, that's right. So
In
we,
addition to-
yeah. It kind of depends on how you want revenue to come in a sense. So in some towns, they have said, we want some of this to come in as a pilot, a payment in lieu of taxes. And so we have used an amount that's sort of standard in the solar sector in New Hampshire, which is $2,000 per megawatt of the system size. And then we would adjust the lease rate accordingly. So we want the town to get the most value you can out of it. And we also have to have a system that somebody's willing to finance and
Right.
and operate. So
So it's tomato,
we can-
tomato.
yeah, but if If it suits your needs to have a payment in lieu of taxes, we can build that in, and we would do that, and then we would show you what the lease rate is, what the payment in lieu of taxes is, and we can show you that in a cash flow.
Would the board like to see a proposal, like a draft proposal, and just,
Yeah.
we
Yeah, I
can
mean, that's the next
get a
step.
starting point
Yeah.
and go from there?
That'd be great.
We gotta look at it, right? 'Cause we got town meeting not too far away. Seems like.
Yeah, we
it
can give
isn't.
you a draft proposal. We can also give you just the template of what an option and lease agreement looks like. They're legal agreements, so, they're like long and
Yeah.
but anyway, just so you or whoever wants to start looking at that, you can take a look at it.
Sure,
and we
it'd be
can
great to
that
get
your
all
way.
that.
Yeah, if we could start that process and look at the template or a proposal,
Yeah.
that would be a good
Sure.
starting point.
Yeah, cool. I mean, it's, I live in Hopkinton. I'm on the budget committee where we have a solar, it's not a revision project, but that's being developed in our landfill. And these are great ways to make use of a landfill that doesn't really have a lot of redevelopment opportunities.
And did you say you had warrant article language as well?
Yeah, I can send you a sample of what that would look like.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Thank you. All right.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Mark. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, good to meet you.
Forward to
too.
talking to you again.
Super. Thanks for the time and for the good questions. And I will follow up on the landfill sinking
Perfect.
compaction question as well. I'll try to get that answer when I send you this information.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a wonderful night. All right, next up on the agenda, I'm going to shuffle a couple things. So we're going to have our school board reps and Superintendent Mr. Krieger join us. I'd like to welcome Ms. Shauna Manthorn, Ms. Katie Knudsen, Ms. Allison Walczyk. Sorry, hopefully I said it
This
Is that
is
right?
easy for you to say.
and Superintendent Justin Krieger. Nice to meet you. Welcome. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, sir. Oh, okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome.
This is for-
Thank you, sir.
Good to see you.
So I know over the years, we've always had our school board reps come in and provide an update, and it's been a little bit of time, so I thought it would be good to have everyone come in and say hello.
Thank you
Welcome.
very much for having us. We're really here just in support. We will answer any questions, but Mr. Krieger's going to be making the main presentation, so.
I did provide, there was one or two questions I sent ahead of time.
Yes, sir.
so
Yes.
Hopefully you got those.
Yep.
So, thank you.
And I also very much appreciate the invitation as well to come. One of the things that I said in Sandown when I was there, I think when the leaders of the community get together and are sharing information, I think it's a sign of a healthy community. So from my perspective, I hope this is the first of a long chain of events that allows us to share information back and forth between the school district and Plastow. So again, appreciate the invitation. All of you have a packet in front of you. It's going to allow me to run through 5 major categories, each one with some talking points underneath of that. What I'd propose to do this evening is just to stop after each numerical item to see if there's any commentary or any questions from folks here. And if it needs to be more fluid than that, we can certainly break that down as well. The first topic before you, I just wanted to highlight some things happening here in Plastow and also across the school district. The first is I wanted to bring to everyone's attention that this is the first year that we have an NECC program at the pre-K level. That's housed at the Learning Center in Sandown Central. It is a pre-kindergarten program that serves students on the autism spectrum. And I bring it to your attention, one, because it's the only program of its kind at that level in the state of New Hampshire. So we're wearing that proudly here in Timberlane. But fiscally, it also allows districts over the long term to save money, to not pay for students that we can house and serve their needs here in district. So not only is it a cost-saving measure, but it's keeping those kids and those families in our communities as well. So I wanted to highlight that program at the Learning Center this year. Also, the second thing to point out specific to Plastow is the change of leadership at Pollard Elementary School. We welcome Ms. Mary Sullivan hired her back to Timberland as a principal. Really impressed with her so far, and also wanted to leverage her ability to kind of work in school districts from different levels as well. She's been a building administrator in the past, but also a district level administrator who's now returned to the building with a distinct lens of curriculum instruction and assessment. So we're really happy to see those improvements she's going to be bringing to Pollard. Two things to point out that are across our district. The first is soft start and morning meeting. This is across the board throughout Timberlane at our elementary schools. This allows students to come into the building and have two trusted adults that they're with every morning to build up a level of degree of trust between the kids. So then when they get into the instructional components of the day, that level of trust is already solidified among kids. They're taking more risks with their learning. It is a very proud way to start school for us here, and it allows us to read each kid and kind of see what their need as they're coming in our buildings each and every day. And again, that's for every kid, K through 5, in all 4 of our elementary schools across the district. Proud of that as well. Two things that I want to bring your attention to that are a little bit larger scale. The first is around student enrollment. The narrative in New Hampshire, and it's an accurate one, is that student enrollment is on the decline at the macro level. It's important for me to point out to you folks that that's not the case here in the Timberlane Regional School District. So with our reporting, we're looking at potentially either staying even or adding maybe 200 kids over the next decade. So not a huge thing. That's not something to panic about, but it is something that's a counter to the narrative that's statewide that I want to keep us on the micro focus here across our school district. And the last thing, and this is the first time that you'll have an attachment in your packet, there's an ad hoc committee at the board level. They're studying kindergarten and also early childhood education. Two things to point out with that. The first is the attachment in your article. If you folks could do anything in your leverage streams to kind of promote that QR code that you have there. It's essentially a community survey, whether you have students in the district or not. If you're a resident of one of these towns, we're really looking to gain some input for those folks. There's also an upcoming in-person session that I'd advertised tonight for any residents in Placerville that would like to join us. It is going to be October 28th, which is a Monday. We'll be at the high school, and it's going to start at 6 p.m. And it's really going to be billed as a community listening session, not large scale, but very small scale. We're going to try to get community members in small groups, 6, 8, or 10 people. We'll have an administrator there or a board member to facilitate discussion, but really looking to hear in terms of what people have and more of a fluid conversation that way. And again, it's about kindergarten and early childhood educational program across the district.
That meeting will be located in the cafeteria.
In the cafeteria.
And
I'll pause there and
yeah, just before, if anyone has any questions, please raise your hand and I'll call on you, okay? Liz?
I love the NECC program, thank you. Is that a feeder for the program in Atkinson?
Correct.
Possibly.
Correct.
Okay.
100%.
All right.
And I have a quick question for
Yes,
you.
sir.
Student enrollment is even or possibly going up 200 students over the next decade
Across the district.
across the district. What is it in Plastown?
In terms of happening here,
Yeah.
I can look more closely at that and see what it would be per town, and I'd be happy to get you that
Okay,
information.
that'd be great.
And again, these are projections that go out 10 years. They really tie with some accuracy to our actual enrollments with 5. After you get out of the course of those 5 years, between 5 and 10, we're losing a little bit of accuracy that way. But we can certainly look at Plastow, and we can look at the elementary school here as well.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? No? Carry on.
Yeah, I'll move to numeral 2 there. This is really sharing with you folks measures that the school board and the superintendent have taken over the last calendar year plus to kind of get our fiscal house in order. And I'll start with letter A. This is our bidding policy or purchasing policy here across the district. It's letter D, J, E. And wanted to remind folks that the board brought this back to policy and did a lot of work to reduce the amount of cash that needed to be represented before going out to bid. They lowered that from $50,000 to $20,000. And they also allowed or encouraged that there was going to be bidding or quotes that needed to get obtained. And that was through my office as the superintendent of schools, anything from $10,000 over. We enacted that when that board was having that conversation. Although it took the policy committee a while to actually get it there, we were implementing that narrative through its process. In addition to that, we've also had some additional checkpoints that we've put in the bidding in the purchasing and the invoicing of areas. And again, my office is just more involved in that section, and me personally needing to sign off on purchases of a certain thing before they're moving to a level. It's allowing us to have a better understanding of where things are headed, but also being really sure and confident that what we're proposing has been planned out on the backside in terms of how it's going to get done. The other things I'd point out, a couple of changes organizationally in the school district.
I think somebody had a question.
I just wanted, do we
Sure.
want to wait?
We're going to wait till
for each
he
block?
gets through
Okay.
that section.
Okay.
Cool. Sounds good. A couple of other structural changes that we made. A lot of school districts, and Timberlane was not different when I first got here, but their finance and their facilities departments are usually directly linked to one another. I've talked with the board, and organizationally, we have broke those pieces apart. I think it allows for a whole lot more robust communication to happen, and I think it isolates the fiscal chain, so there's just more controls over that piece. So that is where we are organizationally now. The board and I also had some discussions about the subcommittees and how to improve not only the work that's happening, but the communication up to the board level. So what is getting there has also been a little bit rearranged, and we've kind of rededicated some foci in terms of what those purpose is for each of those committees, so that when they're getting to the board level, they're communicating clearly to them, but also having horizontal communication between those committees about strategically placing people so they understand where each other are headed. That informs their own committee's work and allows them to do better jobs. And the last thing I'd share with you is that we're also implemented a more robust evaluation structure at the administrative level. This is for folks that are in associations and unions with us, but it's also been extended to our non-affiliated administrators this school year as well. I'll pause there.
All right, thanks. Any select board members have questions? Okay. Mr. Anthony?
How's it going?
Good. Well, sir, how are you?
Not too bad. Just a question. You mentioned that the threshold for bidding was moved from like 50K to 20K.
Correct.
Now, does that mean that you personally, have oversight on those types of bid type processes?
Correct.
So, are there any controls in place for like so-called split bidding? I mean, you don't want, like, if it were 50K and if somebody, then broke up the bid, let's say, into $10,000 increments and such like that, so that it didn't show up to, that threshold.
That would be a red flag that we would be able to see. So if you're asking if there's controls over that now, 100%.
Okay.
Thank you. All righty.
I'll move to agenda item 3 with us. And this is, I think, the most informative for everyone here tonight. This will have 2 attachments. I've given you the unassigned fund balance sheet that's labeled as number 2, and I'm going to talk specifically really about the bottom portion of that. Before I did that, I've also given you attachment number 3, which gives you the unassigned fund balance of the Timberlane Regional School District dating back a decade plus, just for historical reference. The last attachment that's there, that's number 4, is also the hard copy of the MS 25 that the school district submitted to the DRA most recently. So that's just for information. I get to letter B, which is the unassigned fund balance, and this number only becomes static and does not continue to change when we submit that MS 25. And this is where we're at. The unassigned fund balance for this year is $16,390,237. I want to remind this group that the board voted to retain 0% of that fund and return it all back to the taxpayers to offset the next tax cycle. What I want to do next is break that number down for you because it's large. It's really made up of 2 components. You have letter C there, which is about $3.5 million of additional revenue that's comprised in that number. And you have letter D, which is about $11.4 million of cost savings. That's what I'm going to look at you to direct your attention to attachment 2 on the bottom portion of that document right now. And I'm going to break down those 2 numbers so you can understand what makes up the $3.5 million of revenue, and you can understand what makes up the $11+ million cost savings. Start with the revenue piece. At the top of your list, you'll see tuition revenue at $550,000. This is either tuition revenue. This could be revenue that staff are paying for their kids to come to school if they don't live here. This could be school districts that are paying Timberlane revenue to take in kids K to 12 at that point, but just additional student tuition revenue taken in last year than we anticipated. You'll also notice $500,000 of interest income. If you have, I'm sure that many of you are paying attention to those interest rates. Those were not things that we could reasonably forecast at that point, and so we had a little bit of an addition there. The next number is a large one. It's $950,000. This is a reimbursement from the trustee of a trust fund that was used to purchase a boiler in the previous fiscal year. This is the reimbursement for that purchase the school district made, and that's at a $950,000 mark. There's also the $500,000 for the contingency that went back to taxpayers. This is raised in the warrant article each year, and Timberlane does not have a large history of dipping into those funds. So that's why you see it there. There's also food service income. This is what students and staff and families are paying when they're going through the food service lines in all of our schools. That account also took in additional revenue, or more than expected. And the good line on the bottom parses there, we took in another $600,000 of actively seeking out federal grants.
May I ask?
Sure.
Food service and federal grants are legally required to be kept in separate funds. So how is that calculated into your general fund surplus?
So these two are added back in at the end of that year and at the previous point of the first year. I can break those apart for you further, but they're things that we need to be able to present. At least that's what our auditors are doing with us. Okay. Different opinion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I shouldn't, we can talk about it, but
Yeah.
they need to be in separate funds. I don't know how you're giving back food service income to the taxpayers that was generated through federal, state, and other means. It needs to be kept in a separate fund that's non-lapsing. So I just want to make sure that it's done properly so that we're.
Further, my understanding is that they are separate funds.
Right.
But these are not, particularly for the food service, this is not money that's getting received through Timberlane, through the state at all. These are users of the program going and purchasing those pieces.
Correct.
Okay.
But every dollar that's spent has a federal component.
Sure, absolutely.
So that's why
let's talk more, and then maybe that I'm misspeaking or I'm not explaining myself appropriately.
Okay. I just want to make sure. That's all.
Any other questions on the revenue side?
I have one. The tuition revenue, the 550.
Yes.
Are we going to be in the same position this year to get that revenue back? But you said there's 550, we're pulling in the tuition from other students?
All kinds of sources, yes.
Right. So will we see this as a revenue source next?
You'll absolutely see it as a revenue source next cycle. I think this is a signal for us that we just need to have a better lens on projecting it.
Okay.
It'd be part of the budget next year, not the unanticipated revenue.
Okay.
What is the cost per student?
How are you, what does that mean? Does that mean in terms of, there's a lot of different ways to get to that.
Take the generic kid off the street that's riding his bike to school. How much does it cost Timberlane to?
I think a safe thing to say is about $20,000.
$20,000. Okay.
Could I share a little bit more information with you?
Absolutely.
I could share that also that New Hampshire is in the top quartile in the nation in terms of what it spends per pupil. It's also, sir, number 50th in the nation about what percentage the state funds per pupil education.
That doesn't shock me.
It doesn't shock you, but look at what that does in terms of the funding model in New Hampshire.
Exactly. Thank you.
You betcha. Nothing else on the revenue. I'll move to savings.
Carry on. Thank you.
Big ones down here. We'll start with salary and benefits. That number is $6 million. It's made up of a couple of different items I'd like to point out. One is the difference or the delta in the guaranteed health maximum rate that we're giving at the outset of the year before the budget is presented, and then what that actual rate comes in after. So you're looking about $2 million of that $6 million is the delta between what our guaranteed maximum health rates would be and what they actually came into after the budget was solidified. In addition to that, it's no secret that Timberlane has really struggled to allure and to attract and retain staff over the last few years. That is changing now with a teacher contract and admin contract that's in place. This last hiring cycle we just went through, we were making some real good decisions with candidates, and that was not happening in years past. But we went through a large period of time that not only did we have a lot of support staff positions that were open and vacant, we had a lot of professional positions that were open and vacant, and they are carrying the salary and the benefits of those lines through. We attempt to make up some of the legal obligations we have for special education by contracting for some of those services. And when we're able to do that, we can draw from those salary lines. My direction is to continue to try to do that, so we're being accurate in the salary components and when we're looking at the contracted service providers as well. So a lot in that number: health insurance, the inability to get some staff, and also what I'll talk a little bit about later, some real looking that we need to do and are planning to do in terms of bringing some recommendations for some staff reductions through the budget committee process this year. Next number there is the lease payment. This is the payment, or this is appropriately the district needs to make each year. There was not a lease payment to make this year because you only are making payments on the phases that you are completed. Timberlane has just finished and kind of mapped out phase 1. There will be a lease payment coming due at the end of the current fiscal year we're in.
Which is the $2 million?
We will appropriate $2 million. What the actual payment is will be the percentage of what was borrowed.
Okay.
You'll also notice sped tuition at $1.2 million there. This is fundamentally the result of a change in law. Very recently, as of June 30th, the Department of Health and Human Services took a much more active role in funding what would transpire as community incidents for kids that would require them to be residentially placed. Prior to that change in law, that educational portion was really the responsibility of the school district. And we're talking at a cost of anywhere from $30,000 to $300,000 per child. That has now changed. There was a whole lot more funding support available to school districts across New Hampshire this year, which is why you see that we did not expend what we thought we were going to need to expend for our kids that were already in the positions of needing those services. That is a law that is going to be subject to change. We're closely monitoring it. We don't know exactly if it's going to be different this next year, but it's a good opportunity for me to also point out that your special education costs are going to be your most volatile because you don't know who's going to move in tomorrow, and you don't know what someone may need when they're moving in tomorrow. The other numbers there are also special education for transportation. It's $700,000 in savings. I've said it more than once. This is not a good number. This means that we were not providing every single special education transportation route to our families that we needed to last year. This is a direct result of the shortage of drivers. And unlike regular education transportation, we are billed per route for special education. So this is us not providing what we need to do for students. That number can't be like that next year. Next number down there is $600,000. That's professional services. Again, that's savings in lines because we're going into the salary lines to start with those folks that we're legally obligated to provide for kids. The next number there is capital improvement. That's $400,000. That was just a strategic decision on behalf of the board to not fully expend that capital improvement line. So that is going back to taxpayers. There's utilities and rebates. That's really a direct result of the lease projects that are ongoing. I don't expect these to continue at the current rate because the rebate was really large this year and it's only a one-time thing, but we'll certainly see energy savings over the course of time. That's why we're doing these projects across our district. And a very small percentage of the savings was books and information resources. Pause there again.
Any board members, Board of Selectmen?
I have a question about the sped transportation.
Sure.
Has that been amended this year where there are more drivers and we're able to get students to where they need to be and not doubling up? And
Yep, we have, there are more drivers, special education, transportation there were last year. There is less doubling on the routes.
Okay.
And there's a whole lot more creativity with partnering with either some other companies that are helping us as well.
Okay, so can I ask another question? The special ed
Yes.
tuition, I'm just on a roll.
Yeah.
Sorry. Are there programs in place within the schools that can support some of the kids that are out of district placed, or are you still out districting kids because we don't have the specialists, OT, the PTs?
Yeah, I mean,
And-
anytime and again, these are all individual education team decisions, right, that they're making. But when those teams get to that point of making a decision that that child requires X,
Yep.
the next question is, can the district provide X? And if it can't, then we are obligated to go seek something out of district for that child. Timberlane does have some in-house programming at its elementary schools that is getting off the ground. We are slowly developing some programs at the middle school and high school to receive some kids that are coming. But it is it's a long journey ahead for Timberlane, but it's one that we clearly are committed to correcting.
Thank you. I just think, it's important that the taxpayer know how that process works.
Sure. Greg?
I know we've spoken before the end of last year, and I appreciate you working with us as far as making the payments over to you, to the district. I had received a payment schedule estimate on July 1.
Okay.
That very closely mirrored the schedule from the previous year. Now, at the end of close on July 1, you're reporting $18 million in the bank. So with the first 3 payments before the first day of school, you should have somewhere in the neighborhood of $42 million in the bank. So I'm going to ask if you can go back to your business department and relook at your cash flow, because given the $500,000 of excess revenue and interest, that means you earned more than that. And knowing the towns have a much broader cycle and run into cash flow problems, that can we take a look at that?
You and I talked last year, and
Yep.
I think that if there is an opportunity for us to talk out a payment schedule that allows the district to meet its obligations to pay its employees and its vendors on time and benefits the town, that seems like a win-win situation. So that seems like there's need in there and some agreement about what that may look like on both sides.
That'd be great, because I said you started with 18 million. So,
I like that number.
but anyway, I appreciate that. So just if we can, maybe relook at the cash flow statement and the needs, that we can maybe work around that a little
Sounds
bit.
like it's a necessary conversation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. Well, actually, a couple. But with respect to salaries and benefits, I was just wondering if, in terms of when negotiating with various unions, I don't know if you have the latitude in New Hampshire to do it or not, but I'm going to point to, let's say, a town like North Reading in Massachusetts that had negotiated a high deductible type healthcare arrangement, with their staff, but offset that with a funded deductible pool, so that if it were, let's say, a $5,000 deductible, you get the benefit of the lower cost of the high deductible plan, but then for the members, you're reimbursing them up to the deductible portion out of, that they're paying out of pocket. And then I think the arrangement actually works out where you end up saving a substantial amount of money, because not everyone's going to be using the healthcare and they're not going to be submitting for reimbursements. Does New Hampshire have that type of?
We can explore those things, and the
Okay.
board did do that with the association, really the Teachers Association this year. Both sides come to the table and attempting to be really creative in terms of some of the things that they could look at. We had a couple presentations from some health insurance carriers. My understanding of the end of those conversations that it did not seem workable from both sides. But I know that that is something that the board is continually interested in doing in terms of looking at healthcare costs.
Mm-hmm.
And just the second one, where you had talked about various line items in the budget that you were funded, that are salaried funded line items, but also looking to fund contracted out. Now, where those items that you're looking to contract out, I mean, is it one or another? They're mutually exclusive, or are you funding both sides of that equation? Like,
Not funding both sides. So,
Okay.
and with the folks that we're contracting out are mostly related service providers. So these are people that have somewhat of a clinical degree or background, a speech and language pathologist, an occupational therapist, a school psychologist. that can just receive a much better rate of pay and benefits in the private sector.
So you're not double funding the categories?
No, and it's
Okay,
why I'm
good.
being really adamant that like when we are looking at a position that we currently don't have a human being for and we contract it out, that we're looking at the salary line first and we're drawing from that side of things and the benefit line first before we're going into any contracted service provider lines. I want to have an accurate count on what money is going to what position so that allows us to make just better future planning decisions.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it was more on, I guess, kind of a follow-up with staffing. I know that was like a big part of it last year, right? There were a lot of positions you couldn't fill. Did you plan on filling most of those positions, or are you going to be eliminating a bunch of them?
So a couple good things to say now is that the vacancy report, this is the professional job posting report, is the shortest it has been in 4 years in Timberlane. So that's a good movement. The support staff positions, by my last calculation, there were 63 of them open and vacant across our district. I'm currently now working with the special education department to see which of those positions are necessary and required. And what I mean by that is which ones are we actively trying to hire? And then I'll be left with a number of positions we're not. And those are the conversations I want to have with the board prior to going to the BudCom in terms of what I'll be recommending for reductions.
And I'll be happy to see that. Thank you.
That's a big part of it.
It is, trust me. We've had that
Moving
conversation.
on.
Yeah.
Is there more that you're going to do? I mean, you're talking about revenue, correct?
Yeah, I got number 4 and 5 to work through, but I'm happy to.
All right. So in terms of, the surplus, we're basically saying that, you've attributed $3+ million of it to revenue that's coming that you've broken out here that you've done a presentation on. Where's the other 13 million or so, plus or minus? What's that attributable to in the budget? Is that unexpended budgetary line items?
13 million, where are you looking? What point me in that
I
direction?
mean, you're looking at the, $16 million.
You're probably right under the savings, Richard.
What's that?
The savings, I think, under the
Bottom
savings.
half of that schedule.
Savings is where it is. So they saved the
See the
money.
6 million, the
11.4.
2 million.
If you add the revenue and the savings, I'm
1.2.
assuming that gets you to your 16 million, right?
Just about.
Revenue and savings.
Add the revenue and the savings together.
That'll get you your 16 million.
Okay. Are any of those items attributable to unexpended budget line items from the previous year?
Everything that you would see under the savings heading, I would say are attributable to unspent money that we had forecasted to spend to specific ends. Forecasted to spend $6 million more on salary and benefits.
So to that end, though, what's the bottom line on the new budget that you're looking to? Are you just level funding it, or are you looking to reduce or reflect the new budget going forward? Some of these going to be.
Understand that question. My goal for the budget season, I've talked with the board about, is bringing a budget to budget committee that provides voters a distinct choice between the proposed budget and the default budget.
So, Richard, we're going to move on. So if you want to continue on with your
The last thing I'd say just for that piece there is the projected tax impact. So now that the MS 25 is filed, we have the number that is to the penny. These are projections right now and estimates. I don't think that the DRA, Greg, has released the tax pieces yet. But if
Yeah,
you
we're going over that tonight.
over that today.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, if you're looking out ahead and you're in Plastow and you're looking at a $400,000 home, the impact for the taxpayer for the unassigned fund balance to offset taxes will be about $760 that people would see some relief in December and January. Budget process, and Richard, I think this is some of the things that you're getting to. For me, there's a dual priority in the budget process. As an educational leader, I've got an obligation to deliver educational services of high quality kids. But I am also part of the community, and we need to do that in a fiscally responsible manner. And I've said from the outset that I don't think it's a binary choice. I think we can do both. And those are the aims that I'm going to move forward the budget process with. Letter B, I'd really like to bring your attention to. This is the New Hampshire school funding model. December 5th, the New Hampshire School Funding Fairness Project is going to make a pretty exhaustive presentation to the school board I really encourage your attendance at that meeting, be it in person or virtual. There'll certainly be an opportunity for you folks and the residents of your town to also submit questions for these folks as well. But really, this is what they're going to lay out for everyone to understand. Where does New Hampshire get its money to fund its educational components? And it gets it from three sources. It gets it from local revenue, which will generally account for 5 to 10% of the funds raised in the school district. It receives adequacy funding, which is the money from the state of New Hampshire, and that's about 10 to 20% of the total revenue stream. And then it's at the foot of taxpayers. And in New Hampshire, that can range anywhere from 70 to 80%. That's our model. That's not specific to Timberlane. That's across the state of New Hampshire. And it creates a lot of challenges for the people that are involved in all kinds of sides of that model. So I want us to understand the model kind of moving forward. So again, December 5th, I really would propagate that folks are wired in and tuned into that presentation. Other thing to point out, letter C is about our contractual obligations. Mm-hmm. Every budget cycle, year to year, 70% of that budget is going to be contractual. Things that voters have already approved through warrant articles, for collective bargaining agreements, for vendor associations, for the lease that the school district is engaged in now. You know, leaving about 30% of our budget discretionary, just getting to the next letter item there in terms of the direction the principals and directors have, and you'll see this borne out through their budget presentations, is that this is not the year to be asking for anything new. This is not the year to be asking for additional people or personnel. This is not the year to bring additional programs to the table. This is a year to stay put, to take a good look at what we're doing and see how we can improve the systems that we have. Thinking about special education programming and doing well with the things we have. But you're not going to see, or the budget committee will not see, new items or new endeavors brought forward before them this year.
Good. I think everybody needs to take a breath.
Everybody needs to take a breath. And as I previously shared, my main target here in the unassigned fund balance breakdown demonstrates it. It's positions, and that's kind of where my focus is right now for the remaining future. Thank you. Welcome.
Can I ask another question, or maybe a couple? Yes or no?
It's not take too long, but sure, I'll give you one question, Anthony. Richard.
Just in terms of the default budget calculation, if the default budget's going to be the contractual obligations that plus up with contractual obligations minus non-reoccurring expenses and things like that. Is any of this calculation in terms of savings and from and revenue and such going to not just merely I mean, you have a budget that resulted in $16 million surplus that you just broke out. All right. Is that default budget calculation at all impacted by, some of these findings that you've done? In other words, we're not looking at the same budget that generated 16 million and then just representing it as the default budget, minus the one-time
that would
expenses.
Be, in my view, that would be an oversimplified way to look at that. There's a whole lot more complexities in terms of how a default budget is calculated.
Sure.
One of the things that is going to drastically impact it is the number of positions that are in that proposed budget, and whether or not those are getting recycled or not recycled. And in my view, they wouldn't get recycled or pushed on. But it seems like the question that I'm hearing, it seems to be getting at, like, how do you change things long term? You propose budgets that are more responsible than the previous one, and you don't rely on the default budget to correct things or to allow for, it's just more status quo is how I would look at that. And this $16 million unassigned fund balance is not status quo. Look at the last 10 years of history here. That number's out of whack.
What I'm saying, that if you refine the budget in such a way that, let's say, the operating budget that was proposed is going to be lower, and then the default budget. All right, so you have a default budget that doesn't have those refinements incorporated into it. That's going to be higher. That's, in essence, responsible for generating, a $16 million surplus.
Yeah.
All right, so so if you don't go for the operating budget that you've refined, you vote in, you're back to where you were last time.
That would be a decision of the voters.
All right. Keep going.
I'll be quick to end up here. So process moving forward, budget committees, we are pretty much meeting every other Thursday, or the offset of the school board meetings. That is at the SAU. And again, we would invite all kinds of participation. I know there's a delegates and individuals piece there as well, or any things that you may want to sit with the agenda. We can work on getting that in front of everybody. Big dates, I'm sure they're on your guys' radar as they are mine, but we've got the public hearing on January 16th, the deliberative session on February 6th, and the big day for voting on March 11th. Wanted to report out the subcommittee of the board is busy planning out phase 3 of the lease. There's about $12 to $14 million left to draw on that lease, and they are planning out what those next capital improvement projects that will be energy savings will be, and those will get presented to the school board as well. I started from the beginning. I hope this is not the last time I'm back here, or that last time I see you folks over at the board levels or the schools. Again, let's continue to share information. We'll make better decisions. And Richard, I've talked about my goal about the proposed budget and the default budget in terms of where and what we need to do for our communities, in terms of what voters need to have in front of them on the 11th of March.
That was very informative, so thank you very much for doing that.
Thank you very
Well
much.
done.
You know something? Take the rest of the day with pay.
You are wrong.
What I will do is go read to my boys at home.
Okay.
Thank you all very much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
We'll see you back here soon at some point.
Thank you, sir.
All right, next up on our agenda, we're going to cover RPC dues. Tim, you hear about RPC dues?
Here to kind of support revision.
You're just hanging out? Okay. Let's see. So we have a letter from B. Voss at the October 2nd, 2024 meeting of the Planning Board unanimously voted to recommend to the Board of Selectmen they pay the 2025 dues request for continued membership of Rockingham Planning Commission. According to September 16th, 24, letter from RPC, the dues are calculated at 1.07 cents capita on an estimated population of 7,878, making the dues request to be $8,429. RPC has always been a valuable resource available to the planning board, department, and staff, and they're always knowledgeable and very responsive to questions and requests. They provide a multitude of services such as mapping, statistical data, and offer assistance with build-out and analysis and master plan updates. So I believe we have a motion in front of us.
Yeah, and this
If
is
someone
something.
wants to make that motion.
Yeah, I'll make the motion. This is something we do every year, and it's well worth it. I'll make the motion to pay the Rockingham Planning Commission dues for the year 2025 in the amount of $8,429. The planning board voted in favor of our continued membership with the Rockingham Planning Commission at their meeting on October 2nd, 2024.
I'll second that.
Second by Liz. Any further discussion of the selectmen? All right, if not, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries 500. Thank you. All right, moving on. Mr. Colby has stepped out of the meeting for a second. I guess we'll do the public hearing for consider the acceptance of the highway safety grant. Let's see, is there anything here in our packet about that?
Motion.
Just the,
No, Greg has the information. It's called Highway Safety Grant, but it's actually through the police department. Greg has a lot more knowledge than I do on it.
could we possibly just take like a 10-minute recess until Greg can get back? I don't know what people think.
Yeah, we can take a break. Take a 5-minute recess.
So what time is it? It is 6:50.
All right, we're back. Living color. All right, moving on to the public hearing to consider the acceptance of the highway safety grant. I open the public hearing at 6:55. All right, Mr. Colby?
So the police department has gone out as part of the process and has received approval from the Department of Safety for a grant that covers speed enforcement, DUI enforcement, distracted driving, and other issues, seatbelts, impaired driving, and the like. So this is just to bring it to the board's attention and the like, and vote to accept, but also to designate myself as the individual to be able to sign paperwork, you know, the grant agreement, any reports that we need to do and the like. So that's easier than having all 5 board members sign, which is not unusual. As you know, we've done it for water grants and other grants in the past. So
Okay.
that's
thank
what
you.
the,
Any questions from the board?
All
right.
Money for a grant.
I like grant money. It's helpful. Very helpful. I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the Plastow Police Department Highway Safety Grant in the amount of $23,917. The grant is provided by the New Hampshire Department of Safety. Furthermore, I motion to authorize Town Manager Greg Colby to enter into and sign all documents pertaining to the grant on behalf of the town.
Okay, second.
I'll second it.
Second from Liz. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries 500.
thank you.
Do we want to skip over and get to the budget presentations? We'll do the tax rate afterwards,
Sure.
since we have
Yep.
folks here.
Since we have,
All right. On the budget presentations, we have recreation. I know the rec director wasn't able to be here last minute. Will you be presenting, or do you want to table it for another meeting?
it's up.
I say we try it, but why don't we take care of the guys over here first?
Okay. All right, so then we'll start with highway. Mr. Garlington, please join us.
What page is that on?
I dropped my packet, so let
Oh.
me know.
Highway
page that
page
is?
27,
27?
page 27
Good evening.
and 28.
Good evening, how are you?
Is this, want me to go line item by line item? Is what you want me to do, or?
Yes, do that.
Okay, line item, first line item is the highway salaries. That's for the full-time employees. We got myself, a foreman, and hopefully at some point, 2 laborers. That's, $270,000.
Okay.
Next is the highway overtime. This is, obviously it covers snow time, covers basically any emergency, either emergency or meeting that happens after the 40 hours. Historically, I've taken an average of the last 3 years plus maybe a projected number for the current year. Come up with an average of over 67,000. So I proposed a budget of 62,500.
Which is,
Just 5,000 less than
Yeah.
originally requested. Okay.
As part of the budget review, I looked at the total salaries and the overtime, because we do have a 4th position in the permanent up in the highway salaries that currently is unfilled. So because of that, you know, open position, the overtime is a little bit higher, but as long as it remains unfilled, it will help supplement the overtime, if you will. So that's why I had proposed the $5,000 decrease to that line item.
and just to backtrack too, the other request that was like a 30,000 decrease, right?
And that was before, yeah, I mean, Dan had just put together a rough budget, and so I took the, you know, current employees with the CBA, the contracts, what they're due and the like, and, you know, calculated that number out.
Okay.
And what does overtime primarily cover? It's winter, Anything else?
A bunch of things. Wintertime is a good majority of it. Call outs for trees, call outs for motor vehicle accidents, trees down, flooding, wind damage.
So
When we do our safety lines, we do those at night. So,
foreseen
yeah, basically,
circumstances that might affect the town.
yeah.
Okay. You will get called.
Sometimes it's simple as a stop sign or some type of sign gets knocked down or pushed into the road, or a guardrail gets hit, or anything that impedes the ability for people to drive on the roads, or
2 Sunday nights ago, there was a tree across the road.
Sunday morning, yep, 6 o'clock in the morning, the tree came down across Quartz Hill. Called in by the police department to. Most of the overtime, when it's an emergency, is regulated or controlled by the police department or initiated by the police department. Sometimes I actually, believe it or not, get phone calls right to my house or right to my cell phone telling me there's a tree limb down or an issue with a tree or an issue with a road, but generally it's on call. Uniforms is level funded at $3,500. Phone allowance is a stipend per the CPA for the use of our cell phones. Goes down to dues. This level funded at $400. That basically pays for the landfill recertification fees that we need for our, to work at the landfill. We have to have what they call it solid waste operators training certification. And then we're also a member of the mutual aid for the highway departments. Now we're down to general supplies. That is down $2,000. That's miscellaneous stuff that we need for the garage. Could be nuts and bolts. It could be miscellaneous tools. It could be water. Office supplies, that's basically the ink for the cartridges in our printers. Gas and oil is down $5,000. Again, I try to take an average of what it is per month, times it by 12, and if we have a busy winter, that number don't work. We have a good winter.
Where do we get the gas from?
Generally, what I try to do is I keep an eye, we have two options to get fuel. We get the WEX program, which allows us to get fuel at a regular gas station. Or we have the state of New Hampshire has a fuel depot up there in Kingston, New Hampshire. Some of our bigger trucks or our loader and stuff like that, we're not gonna boogie all the way up there to get it, so. But if gas prices are down enough, I feel as though it might be just as cost effective to fill up right at Cumberland's or Irvin or.
But you do utilize the depot?
I do.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. To be quite honest with you, I kind of dual task. I might go get fuel and get a coffee at the same time, so.
And a donut.
Yes, I said that. No donuts. Don't let that rumor get to you. Vehicle maintenance, that is down a little, I mean, that's level funded. That basically covers anything that we do in-house to service our equipment. We try to do as much as we can as things in technology gets a little advanced. Sometimes it makes it a little more difficult, but I do have a very creative foreman who happens to do most of the work, and he's really good at what he does, and I appreciate him extremely. Vehicle repairs, that's the opposite. That's money that we use to fix trucks that we can't fix. We have a maintenance agreement with Caterpillar. That is the only vehicle or piece of equipment that we actually pay to have serviced. It's a little expensive, but in the long run, you have a trained set of eyes watching over your equipment. That stuff is very, very sensitive, and we just had to put new tires on that loader, so that was a good chunk of money. Equipment purchase, that's shovels, rakes. Most of the time, it's a weed whacker or power broom or chainsaws. General traffic supplies, I'm keeping that level funded. That's for the safety lines that we put down, the yellow lines down the middle and the white lines on the side. This year, unfortunately, we had an unexpected thing happen to the guardrail on Greeno Road, so I had to take $14,000 to $15,000, actually close to $16,000 to have that fixed. So I made a decision to only do the yellow lines, do the yellow and the white lines next year. And then instead of increasing that budget to buy a bunch of street signs that I need, I'm gonna try to utilize some of that money out of this year's budget so I don't need to raise that budget any further and still be able to do what I wanna do. Crushed stone, that basically is for materials like riprap or to fix any washouts that we might have based on rain or drainage improvements, level funded at $20,000. Next year, I mentioned Old County Road. Since I put this down, I had talked to the company that's overseeing the project to put the water line down Old County Road. And in order to do that culvert, we're gonna need a full-fledged engineering study, wetlands permitting, all that stuff. So, I think we're gonna see how long that culvert will last us and
Is that something we need to plan for in the future? Maybe start putting money away, capital improvement or something?
yeah,
Because it's probably gonna be a big expense, right? More than $20,000.
I don't know if the engineer will be more than $20,000, but the overall project, what they're gonna do is they're gonna project under that, they're gonna horizontal drill underneath the culvert. So,
So we're not gonna do anything with that this year?
no, my goal for next year's drainage projects is, we have an outfall over on the Oak Ridge Road area that's separated, the pipe is separated from the head wall itself. There's a bunch of debris in the area, so I'd like to look into doing that. And then I need to start looking at the process of how we're gonna handle our detention ponds that we adopt as part of our road acceptance. So I reached out to a vendor and he gave me rough ideas for him to go in and cut the overgrowth and to get that part of it so we can actually look and see what we really have. So he's estimating between it's $2,500 a day. He thinks it's to do the ones that I want to do. He's thinking 3 to 4 days. So I'll do the repair on the culvert first, and then what I have left over, I'll, try to utilize that to fix the Hoyt Farm Road and over on Cowley's Way. Pavement management, that's paving, level funded.
And that's all through a block grant, right?
I don't believe the whole thing is,
Most of it is.
yeah, 135,000 of it,
150,
150.
give or take.
Rentals and leases, I'm proposing to level fund that. Last year when I presented this budget, I was hoping to be able to utilize the rental equipment to clean out the swales over the park. The weather was cooperating for once, but I didn't have the manpower. To rent the equipment for a week is $3,000. There's kind of a specialty piece of equipment that's involved, goes in and cuts the brush, and it's called a boom head or a power head. I just didn't have, when the weather cooperated, I didn't have the manpower. So I think we should level fund that, because if worst case scenario, if we can't rent the equipment and do it in-house, at least we'll have some money to possibly look into hiring a contractor to go in and do it. I did monitor it a few times over the course of the summertime, walked up and down it. I really didn't see big issues. One of the main things that'll show up when it's failing is that we won't be able to mow it. So I've been in contact with the mowing companies. Had no problem this year, so.
No, we've seen that out there.
Yeah, so.
So when would you look to get that done? In the spring, the summer? Spring's usually wetter. That's the
Right.
hard part.
My goal was to do it in July.
Yeah,
And
it's
it
a dry
just-
season.
How about this time of year?
So
How about this time of year?
if it's dry at this time of year, yeah, but for in-house practicalities, this time of year doesn't work out because I'm getting ready for winter.
Okay.
So the period of time the window that I have to actually try to do it in-house, it's just so difficult to do, Darryl, with just 3 guys and vacations and holidays and
Yeah.
it just,
So you missed the window this year.
We did. I mean, another window might be the middle of the winter time.
Yeah, we might not get any snow.
Right. So that's why I said I wouldn't eliminate that out of the budget just and to give up on it, because I really think it's important that, me personally believes that we should get a price for a contractor to go in and just say, this is what it's gonna cost the town every 2-3 years, however we determine it should be done, and just budget accordingly, whether it comes
It
out of the
does
highway
make-
department budget or a facilities department budget. I mean,
And it does make a difference with the fields out there. You can see it in the spring when it has been done and when it hasn't.
I mean, we're still gonna be battling with that irrigation system over there for the next 4 or 5 years. It just, I mean, we got it all operating, but it needs some help, so. Street sweeping, this is where you'll see a good size increase in my budget. It's up to $15,000. Probably a month and a half ago, in the early spring, I reached out to a company that rents sweepers. And I asked him if we could demo, because the sweeping companies, the one that we were using for years and years and years, they went out of business, or he retired and sold his equipment to another vendor. So we used that vendor in the spring. I think dollar for dollar, we could have got a little bit more out of it because we got to send a guy with this person anyway to show them what roads to sweep and then have something for them to dump into. So I said, I'll demo a sweeper, a vacuum sweeper. You're going to get a better job. I think it'll fulfill our MS4 requirements a little bit better because you're getting more of the fines. And the particular sweeper that we demoed also has the capability of cleaning catch basins. Granted, it's not a catch basin cleaning machine, but it has the capability. You're not going to go out and clean 200 catch basins a day with this machine, but if you got it for a month,
Yeah.
and you get done and you got a week and a half left, you can go out and get some of the catch basins that we can't get the clam or the clamshell version of how we clean them. You can put that down in there. And we've had some in the past where I've reached out to the state, and NHDOT has, come down, and they've done a couple of the ones at the end of Forest Street for me, because it's kind of their water going onto our road. But I mean, they've been really gracious and helped us out. But it sure would be easier for us to go over there in the spring when we're done sweeping and clean them ourselves.
Does the state have equipment that we can rent from them? No.
No, they have the equipment, but their equipment goes statewide.
Okay.
Culvert maintenance, that's up a little bit, because the cost of cleaning catch basins per basin. Now, the town of Plastow, and I probably shouldn't say this, but we're one of the few towns that this particular vendor allows us to pay per basin, because we've been cleaning every single one of our catch basins that we can for 20-something years. When I took the job as a supervisor, I says, it's probably the most, and the people that remember back then, I'm big and still big into drainage. You can do all you want to pave roads, but if the drainage isn't any good, then you're wasting your money. So I started cleaning every single catch basin. Well, through the years, we've adopted roads with more and more catch basins. So we're fortunate enough to be, they don't charge us per hour, they charge us per basin. So, but obviously the cost of labor and the cost of getting people here have increased. And that also covers, there's some money in there for me to go out and buy catch basin frames and covers, because probably every year we do 5, 6 to a 10 where they broke, whether an oil truck or a plow truck or something broke the end of them off, so we got to repair them. This allows me a little bit of money to replace those as needed.
Does that give you enough money also to pour concrete around and pave them afterwards?
No, it's not part of that. That comes out of general maintenance.
Okay.
Comes out of the paving line or the. Yeah. Next is sand and salt. That's level funded. Salt did go down a little bit. I think it was $1.10 per ton. It went down from last year, this year. Snow.
Salt shed working out.
What?
How's the salt shed working out?
I wish it was designed a little bit different, but It's a way better than what we had, and
Yeah.
it's working out. We're able to, we got a full shed, well, we got a shed that's as full as we can get it. So we go into this season, with a good amount.
Ready to
so-
go,
So
right?
you're in good shape.
And we're going to have some maintenance work that the shed itself is going to need as well. So
Snow plowing, crystal ball, 200,000,
No snow this year.
right? And I'm sure Greg might have told you, we've got all our contractors on board.
That's
All
great.
agreed. That's great. It's an accomplishment upon itself, believe it or not. I mean,
It's probably still.
I'll say it every year, we got the best in the state. No, hands down, we got the best contractors that,
And it's the same ones too, which is nice.
yep.
They know the roads.
And we were short one truck last year. We were actually able to find, get that additional truck on, which will help us. Tree removal, it's just level funded at $7,000. I generally do that type of work just before the year ends, because I don't want to go and spend that money in July and then we get a hurricane and now I have no money to work with, so. Ground maintenance, which is the mowing and irrigation system and the fertilization. I'm gonna level fund that at $90,000.
Now, is the landscaper in his budget?
yes,
Oh, okay.
for the buildings. So they mow the cemeteries, town hall, and the like.
Yeah.
There's a separate company that does park,
Nope.
the baseball, softball fields,
The separate company are the ones that do the maintenance on the actual
the maintenance on the,
dirt part of the infields.
okay.
And from what I saw, they do an outstanding job. They're
So
a top-notch company.
This number is everything you just talked about then.
The only lawn that doesn't get mowed from this, and in reference to a building, is the library. They don't do we do still gotta do some mowing at the landfill. We still gotta do some mowing at the firing range. We still do some mowing
We do that?
at the water buildings, the tank, and
We do that?
the in-house do it, yeah.
Okay.
It's not done every week. It's not, so it's something we do kind of as a,
Yeah,
With all the spare time that they have.
yeah.
that's right.
We're not doing the swales at Park, we're doing the mowing. But I mean, think this will be the third year we've had this particular vendor, and they do a great job.
Good.
They know my expectations. They know, they know how to take the extra a little bit, and they care about what it looks like. They really do.
Well, I'll say you guys do an excellent job with plowing and maintenance and everything. You're on top of your equipment, so
Yeah, thank you. I
appreciate all the
that.
work that you guys put into what you do.
Especially for a team of three.
Yeah.
Which is, it's incredible when you think about it, a team of three getting all that done.
I'd like to interject something. Twice this summer, I've been at the landfill when it's open on the weekends. He's got a young man that works for him. I'm not sure what his name is, but the kid is amazing. A couple of elderly people drove in. He went right over with the loader, unloaded the pickup, put everything into the metal dumpster. The gentleman was older, and he's like, "I got it for you, sir. Don't worry about it." I watched the young man with two individuals, and I was very, very impressed with him.
Very good.
Thank you, Margot. I'll pass the word.
Telling you what I saw.
Anyone from the board or budget committee have any questions?
Thank you.
Then I guess we'll take a motion to approve the highway budget.
I make said motion.
All right, motion by
Second
John.
it.
And that's, we're doing it for the, 1,067,900.
Yes, is that what we're doing it for, John?
Yes.
1,067,900. Okay. Any, and a second from Liz. Any further discussion? All's in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carries 500.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Dan.
You have any other questions for me or anything you?
I've got one thing.
Okay.
Just so, we had talked about the parking lot, or the parking lot at Park. And Dan had given an estimate with some things that do need to be done because it is severely cracking in the lake. So it's basically a phase 1, phase 2, but the total estimate is in the neighborhood of $158,000. So phase 1, has to do with reclamation, grade, water, compact, talks about square yards of pavement, and then the winter binder, and then restriping. And then phase 2, after the pavement has cured, if you will, to do 1, the overlay, and 2, the Cape Cod berm along the edge to divert the water from going into the fields, as well as restriping it. So it's around $100,000 in phase 1 and about $56,000 in phase 2. So those are, he's had a contractor come up to look at it, see if it was feasible to fill, crack seal, and the like.
Too far gone.
Yeah. The question is, would that be the upper and the lower, that estimate's for the whole thing? Does the lower have to be done, or is it really just the upper that needs it? And can you split it?
To be honest with you, if you're gonna go through the process of putting equipment over there to do it, I just do the whole.
Yeah, that's
Because
what
you're
I'm
gonna be
asking.
back 5 years from that to do, then you're gonna say, well, why couldn't we have done it? I mean, and the prices that I gave Greg were 2024 prices.
Okay.
I just know there was a lot of conversation way back in the day about putting a berm along that parking lot to stop the water from going on to the fields.
Yes. That
So
was
you
one
can
of the
only-
phases that never got done.
You would have had to repave the parking lot to get that done.
Yeah.
Because you put the binder down, you put the curb down, and part of the curb, it leaves a little reveal, and then you put the overlay, which basically secures that curb down, which, lessens the chance it's gonna get plowed up. And at the same time, when you grade it, you can kind of grade it and tip the parking lot away from the fields like it probably should have been. Right now, it's crowned
They're right in the middle, so it
Middle.
goes both ways.
because there's a septic system under the parking lot.
Yes.
Do you plow that?
We plow it so the building's accessible.
Okay,
Yep,
all right.
we do, because if there's a fire,
If it's too far gone to not reclaim it, then it's not a rush to do it, because it's too far gone now. It's not one of those things that you're going to save it at this point. It's full reclamation, so
no.
if we don't do it this year, then you might be able to do it next year or whatever, but.
Right. I don't know what the overall concern is. I don't know if the concern's a tripping hazard. I don't know if the concern's aesthetics. I don't.
I think it's more or less, I think you saw all the cracks out there. I don't think anyone's worried about tripping, because I don't see anything breaking up, which is probably going to happen at some point. Right?
Well, if you look closely and it's raining, you can actually see the sand coming up through the parking lot.
Yeah, usually
That's
there's
how far it's gone.
Usually there's no ball game, so I'm not over there for that.
But I think if you're gonna ultimately do it the right way and you wanna.
Yeah.
I mean, is there any more development plan, anything where the town's gonna be putting a concrete truck out there or any of that stuff? Because let's face it, that anytime you do construction,
Right.
you've just taken 10 years off its life.
I think the fields out there is about as far as you can get, right? You're not gonna get another field in out there, because you're still gonna keep that big multi-purpose field.
Mhm.
And I mean, you've already got 2 softball fields out there, 2 baseball fields. There isn't room to put another one in out.
No.
So is it
No, but that's an
something-
important thing you wanna make sure and take into consideration is that,
Yeah, you don't want to beat it to death after.
right?
Right.
And if you go ahead and Daryl probably knows, if you reclaim it, you grade it, you probably add some stone to the reclaim, you're gonna beef up your base, and then you put good 2.5 inches of that tight binder, you might get 3, 4, 5 years out of it before you put the overlay. But you don't wanna wait too long, because then you'll have to use a little bit more on the overlay to bring the parking lot back to
Right.
what the original shape of it was.
So what does phase 1 do?
Reclaim, grade, water, compact, and then the overlay.
They basically come in and they
Your binder.
rototill it.
But are you saying you're gonna reclaim compact over an existing leaching field?
Well,
Did somebody
well,
say
they're
there's a
leaching boxes. I believe they're concrete.
chamber system?
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope they're HD loaded. If they're not, they shouldn't be in the parking lot, but
That's exactly what I was thinking.
And phase two is the berms?
Cape Cod berm, yep, and then the overlay,
Top coat.
top coat, yep.
yeah.
And how are
Phase
you,
one, you're making the cake. Phase two, you're putting on the frosting.
Exactly.
Just want to make sure everyone hears it and understands it.
And if you're gonna go if you're gonna go a good amount of time without doing the overlay, you're gonna have to stripe it, because I think people already have problems with that parking lot even with it striped. So,
And that's without training.
again, those are my recommendations. I mean, but I did meet with a vendor out there, and he says, "There's no, you stop trying to blow those cracks out, you're gonna basically have a gravel parking lot."
Well, that parking lot's probably, what, about 17, 18 years old, somewhere in there? So about '07 is probably when it was done, right?
Yeah, and I don't think that parking lot ever saw an overlay. I think that's just a tight bind of parking lot.
Yeah, it may not be, because I know the park opened in '08. I think everything was all set, ready to go '07, then everything sat for a year, so it could mature. So '07 probably makes sense when that was done. Possibly even '06.
all right.
I just, while he was here, I wanted
Yeah.
to fill the
That's
board
good
in,
information,
so.
is that something the board wants to look to address either through the budget or through a warrant article to start the process? Because it sounds like
Is it even in the CIP?
it's a lot of money.
I don't think
I
so.
don't
We should
believe-
probably
I don't
get
believe
that
so.
to the CIP. So,
I think that, maybe we wait. If it's, like I said, if it's that far gone, a year isn't going to make the difference. Maybe hold off.
No, it's nothing's popping up yet. Like,
Right.
It's not falling apart.
But it's not gonna get any better. We need to put
Oh,
it.
no.
in
That's what I'm saying.
CIP.
But the CIP is what you do, is gets
Put it
it,
in
it buys the
CIP and make a
Right.
plan, because every year construction materials go up.
Tim's making a mental note of it right now.
Tim's putting it in at the next meeting, right?
Yeah.
Then we will start the plan for that because that's a big expense.
And same goes for the cemetery.
Yeah.
That's in some desperate,
Oh, that's bad.
it's getting bad.
We need a phase 3 for that as well.
The pavement,
Not just the pavement,
Phase 3 and phase 4,
all for the actual expansion.
yeah.
Yeah,
finish that.
yeah.
But yeah, the
It's growing
pavement's
good.
not
That's worked out good.
going very well over there either, so.
Yep.
Okay. All right, anything else? Thank you very much, Dan.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan.
We
Appreciate all your
you.
support.
We appreciate you and the crew.
Thanks, Dan.
Have a good night, Dan. Bye, RSM.
Next up, we'll invite the fire chief, Chief Knudsen.
23.
23.
Page 23, yep. Totals on page 24, it starts on 23.
Dan goes the way all down. He did do a good job.
No? They're not asleep yet?
Good evening, Chief. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Living the dream.
All right. We've worked really hard on our budget this year to, in short of payroll increases, practically make it level funded and actually decrease several lines. In whole, looking at several individual lines, we've reduced almost $24,000 out of the budget by trying to fine tune some of the individual line items. And we've had increases to the budget in payroll that represents pay increases. So it's practically a bottom flat line budget. If you want to look at line 10110, which is the salaries, that's an increase because of raises, and this year we only had the ambulance personnel. They started in March.
Yeah.
So we have to account for payroll for January, February, and March moving forward, obviously. So that's what the increase is for that particular line. Any questions on the permanent salary line item?
when we voted to put the ambulance in, didn't we include the salaries for the EMTs?
We did for that period of time. I didn't budget for 12 months because we knew it wouldn't be operating for 12 months.
Okay,
Yeah, because it didn't start until March.
It didn't start till March,
It wasn't a
so
full year.
all right.
the
okay.
budget was actually designed about 6 to 8 weeks of less salaries
Gotcha.
for this first year because there was no need to budget for it. We weren't going to be expending it.
Right, okay.
We probably talked about in that what it was going to look like for a 12-month period, but that wasn't actually put in the budget for a 12-month period.
Okay.
That might be what you remember. Our uniform line has been level funded. Just, do you want me just to keep going from line to line unless you have a question?
Yeah, go for
Good,
it.
okay. Uniform line's level funded. Telephone line is level funded. Data processing is level funded. Medical services was reduced by $3,000. So what that pays for when we hire a new employee, whether it be a part-time, regularly scheduled part-time, per diem, or full-time employee, we have to send them for a really rigorous medical physical. We also have to continue those physicals annually within about a 6-month deflection, so we could kind of cheat a little bit and get them about every 18 months on all of our firefighters. So that's required in an NFPA standard 1582. That's also required within the New Hampshire RSA 281A17, which is a cancer presumption law. So we have to show that, just to give you a quick overview, in the firefighting industry, firefighters have a 10% increase over the general population of obtaining cancer. We have a 14% increase with dying from that cancer. So a lot of states have developed what's called a cancer presumption law, which now makes certain types of cancers within the fire service, lack of better, this is simplicity as a workers' comp injury, if you will. Okay. So they get benefits from that if they should get a cancer that is known within the fire service. For the firefighter to qualify for that, we have to send them to a 1582 physical. There's no option for that. And we have to continually show every so many years that they were cancer-free. And then if they start picking up a marker that could potentially cause cancer, that we've been addressing that. Otherwise, they would not qualify for that. So that line was reduced to be a little bit more in line with what we've been spending. Just to give you an idea, that's not that many physicals. You're looking at about $1,000+ for one physical. So when we put $15,000 in there, I'm only looking at doing about 15 of those physicals a year.
So you're rotating them?
We rotate, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Like I said, it does give about a 6-month variance with the 12, so you can kind of cheat a little bit and do every 18 months to help with the budget.
Okay.
A little bit. Some of our staff opts to use their own health insurance. They like their doctor they go to. They just use their own health insurance and it covers the physical as well. So there's not a lot of our staff that does that, but some of them do utilize their own health benefits to cover that, and it saves a little bit of money as well. So that line was adjusted to what we would estimate on spending in 2025. We reduced the dues and memberships by $3,730. We had to buy into some of the dispatch CAD software that we utilize in our responses, our report writing and such, and it had some upfront costs. Those are slowly falling off. So once you're in the system and now you're only having to pay for annual maintenance for that system, we could reduce that out of the budget. So we reduced that by $3,730. Office supplies stayed the same. Fire department books, periodicals stayed the same. There's not a lot we actually purchase out of that line. Most of it is for an online software for fire codes and fire codes enforcement. Fire department miscellaneous stayed the same. There's not much in there anyway. The mileage and expense reimbursement is staying the same. We don't utilize that much at all. It's only at $200. We try to force the staff to utilize town vehicles if they have to go to a school or a conference or somewhere. Fire department events and activities was the same. The fire department part-time call firefighters, it was reduced almost $13,000. And you think, well, that might be a lot of money. Is that going to be detrimental? That's looking at our trends and our call volume and what we're spending this year and projected to spend next year out of that line. So as you see, I hope you appreciate that there's been a lot of thought to go into this budget and that we've reduced a lot of the lines that we possibly could without eliminating services to the town. The overtime line is going to stay the same.
With the extra people you have now, that line has to stay the same?
So we're not really at a pivoting point to where we could reduce overtime to cover shifts. If we grow in the future and have some more full-time, you'll hit a point to where you're staffed at this level, but if someone takes off, you don't necessarily have to fill that open spot. We're at a bare bones minimum staffing level, so when someone takes off, we still have to fill those spots.
Gotcha.
So maybe in the future, as we grow a little bit more, that could potentially be adjusted and adjust down some to not have to backfill shifts when someone takes off. But right now, with the positions that we have, when someone's off, we have to fill it with either a part-time or a full-time position. We don't put a lot in building maintenance because that's in a different budget, but that stays the same. We did increase our training line by $3,000. We're not adding anything to our training budget per se, class-wise. That is to stay the same of what we're doing moving forward. So we've had some increases in some of the programs that we deliver and the cost of those. So to maintain where we're at today, that's what it'll cost moving forward. I am working on some plans moving forward that we could maybe significantly reduce this line. It's just not ready to do that maybe in this year's budget, but I'm hoping to develop some training that other towns might want to utilize, and we could collect money to help recover that. So that might be something I'll be talking with you all in the future about for future adjustments. Equipment maintenance, we reduced it by $1,200, just looking at trends on what we spend to maintenance. This is the loose equipment that we have at our fire station. Some things that help with the equipment maintenance is some of the more expensive items. We tried to purchase for lack of better terms, it's like an extended warranty. You buy a heart monitor that's $50,000, and for like $1,200 a year, they'll fix and replace anything that's wrong with it and service it. So that goes more into this budget, but then it helps save money in the long run because we're not spending big money if something should happen to it. So we've tried to, again, be responsible with the equipment maintenance. We're not reducing, even though we have a reduction in cost, we are absolutely not reducing anything that we're doing as far as maintaining our loose equipment. Gasoline, diesel gasoline, about 2 years ago, we started using the state fuel pumps in Kingston, which has saved us a significant amount of money. I don't have that exact dollar amount. Was waiting to get what we would pay at the pump here in town. And I could tell you how many gallons that we've purchased from the state and what we've paid for the state. They have a really robust records management system that we have access to. So once I get those numbers, I can maybe put a solid number in that, but that has reduced cost. We do have the ambulance that we don't typically send to Kingston because it's a little bit too far out of the area to get fuel. So we still utilize some of the local fuel pumps here with the WEX card. Sometimes if we're really busy with calls, we might not be able to get an engine out, so we use the WEX card, but we purchase a lot of our fuel from Kingston, and that helps save some money. Even with that, we're projecting a little bit more of an increase for next year. One of the increases with that is practically this whole year almost, or most of the year, we didn't have a ladder truck. We have an additional vehicle now, so to account for that, we added about $1,400 in fuel to the.
Plus you have an ambulance.
Plus the ambulance. So the ambulance, has a couple more months, because we weren't running it until March 1st.
Right.
So we did hopefully adjust that to a good number to where it's accurate. Vehicle maintenance and maintenance supplies for vehicles, that you'll see is reduced by $3,100. That's looking at what we've been trending this year and what we're expending. We have worked really hard with different vendors, and we have actually a local vendor now that we use. He's got a shop over off 108. that does all of our heavy duty maintenance on our apparatus, and he seems to be very reasonably priced. With that, we do some things in-house to save some money as well. Again, even though there's a reduction in that line, that is not a reflection that we're not going to service and maintenance our vehicles. That's just trying to be responsible with the budget and see that we have some trends there. Maybe we could do the same thing with a little bit less money there. Fire department equipment, that is all the loose equipment that we carry on fire apparatus. That looks like a big number at $28,000, but it really doesn't go far. So I know some things that we have to replace coming up in this new budget is what we call a positive pressure ventilation fan that we use on fire scenes. That one fan is about $4,500. We got a chainsaw we got several chainsaws that are due to be replaced, and they're about $2,500 a piece. So that line was level funded with the anticipation that we have to replace some equipment.
$2,500.
So a chainsaw that we utilize in the fire service is a little bit more robust than you're going to find an M&B tractor. The bar on it's thicker, the chain's thicker, the operating, everything is.
Over the Harbor Freight, they're $170.
Yeah. So
They'll melt.
You can get two.
yeah.
One per
Just
fire.
get some disposable ones. The other general supply line for $27,000 is everything that we utilize on the ambulance side. So that buys all of our medical equipment that's stored on the ambulance and on the fire truck. So anything that's medical equipment categorized comes out of that line.
But that's offset.
That's offset by obviously the income.
Right.
Our whole budget is offset by the income that we have that we bring in from insurance revenue. I was hoping to maybe reduce that line. This year we added really two apparatus that needed medical supplies. The big one was the ambulance, and then the ladder truck had to get a little bit to it. And if you could imagine, every little individual piece of medical equipment on an ambulance, there's hundreds of pieces. We missed that budget by a little bit, so I don't feel comfortable with reducing that any at all. I know some questions, should it go up? I don't think it should go up because we had to buy a lot of things that's a one-time expense.
Yeah.
And then moving forward, we just have to maintain the stock in the ambulance, maintain the stock in the stock room at the station. I feel comfortable with leaving it where it is. I definitely don't feel comfortable with reducing that any this year. I think I hit all the lines. Any questions? Like I said, me and Town Manager Colby really worked hard within this budget to make sure it was responsible, and we tried to cut everything that we could cut out of it that we don't need.
The one piece of this too is revenue now, right? So what, through September, Greg, if I'm reading it right, it's like almost a little over 125,000 through September, the revenue.
I don't have that.
I might
You've
have
got-
that.
Handed out the last one.
Okay. Then yes.
139,615.
Okay.
So if you look at revenue that was projected that we would bring in about 33,000 a month, we're hanging right around average of 30,000 a month. So we're really getting close to meeting that mark. What we've not implemented yet is a collection agency. So this is just the collections coming in from people that have paid their bill or insurance collections. So once a collection agency is implemented, that's probably going to put us at what the projected budget would be, a revenue budget. So again, I know people like to say that our budget increased by X percent, but they forget to say that 70% of that's being recovered through insurance claims.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions for the chief? All right. Anyone want to make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the $1,599,925,000 fire department budget.
Second.
Second from John. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained, motion carries 500. Thank you.
Would you like me to go over the emergency management budget?
Sure.
While you're here.
While I'm here. It's obviously a lot simpler, and it was 100% level funded.
page 26.
Yep, 26.
We approved that one, didn't we?
I
Yes, we
believe
did.
we did.
Oh,
Did we already
already
approve the
approved it.
emergency management budget?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
Okay.
Did, yes.
All right, well,
You're off the.
do you have
you're off the-
questions about? I came prepared. I'll talk. I don't.
Good Boy Scout, good Boy
Well,
Scout.
we approved it 401.
Oh, yeah, the equipment purchase, just I know last year we talked about barricades. What other types of equipment purchases are you
So
going to be making?
the first part of money that's in the or the equipment purchase is really for grant funding matches.
Okay.
So something that we just actually did today, had our first meeting on our hazard mitigation team. So stakeholders met today with the state and our contractor to do hazard mitigation for the town. That's going to allow us to eventually start applying for preparedness grants through Homeland Security. Those grants have some large matches, sometimes up to 50%. So that amount that's really in there is designated for that. If we don't go after grants, if there's no grants that meet our needs, then we still have some work to do, like within our emergency operations center and at the station for emergencies, some loose equipment that we need to purchase for that. One thing that was already identified today in our hazard mitigation is we do or could potentially use some more road signs, the display signs. So that would be a grant request that we would go after and then pay the difference for that. And there would be some generators that we're probably going to go after pretty quick as well to try to get some of our, like the library on Gen Power. And that would be a grant that we would use that money to match with that. So that's the first earmark for that, is for grant matching. And then the second part is to slowly fix things that we have some deficiencies in within like the EOC and such.
Gotcha.
We'll revote it then. Thank you for clarifying that. That's helpful. Make a motion to approve the emergency management budget for $37,225. Second by Bill. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries 500.
I know you hear us say this a lot, but on behalf of our department, thank you for supporting what we do. Thank the taxpayers for supporting what we do, the ones that are out there listening. We make a difference every day in people's lives that unless you're living it, you just don't know. And
with the ambulance, there's a lot of positive feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot.
and that couldn't have been done without the support we get. So thank you all for supporting us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
I'd like to give the chief a little bit of accolades with bringing up and bringing a department to where it is. You also participated in interviews recently. Do you want to fill the board in?
So sometimes you know you're doing good things, but you don't realize how many people or who's paying attention to those good things, right? And about 3 weeks ago, I received a very nice email from our state office of EMS, which controls the pre-hospital ambulance environment, if you will. And they've been watching us. We're doing a lot of things different than what other fire departments do in the state, and they've seen the positive results of those. And so they sent me this really nice email, and then they followed up with that, asking me to sit on the hiring panel. The state's medical director physician is stepping down, and they have to replace it with a new physician. So I sat on the hiring panel, recommendation panel, I should say, for the next state medical director last week. So it's been a couple days in
And
Concord.
that pays what, 75 grand a year?
Probably. It doesn't pay much. I wouldn't probably want to do that, but it's a very important position within the pre-hospital environment in the state of New Hampshire to have that physician oversight.
Congratulations.
So that was kind of a cool.
It's a nice feather in your cap.
It's a nice little feather.
Yeah.
Great job.
Great.
We appreciate all the diversity that you have brought, that southern aspect of your training.
Thanks. They spent all weekend training.
Your wife thinks it's funny.
She's hilarious. She needs to work more, I think.
We have
a couple more honeydew projects.
She just got done working like 6 days in a row.
We have an opening at the highway department.
think his honeydew list just got real long.
Yeah.
The timing just got
If it
short.
goes any further, you're gonna have to sleep with one eye open
Yeah,
tonight.
no.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chief. All right, lastly, we have recreation. What does the board want to do?
Take a look at it. If you have questions, we have questions.
You want to go through it? Do the honors?
I can do that. So the recreation budget, which is
What page?
We're trying to find it.
36.
36.
Recreation budget as presented from the department head was at 217,447. I did through review make $7,500 of cuts to bring it down to 209,947, which is actually a decrease of 2.89% or $6,243. And it's basically is to operate the recreation program at its current state. All of the activities that they host over the course of a year through Easter, Halloween, pumpkin lightings, Christmas time. But more important, and probably the most important thing, is the summer rec program, which, of the $200,000 budget, I believe that the town realized over $100,000 of revenue. So it's basically 50% funded.
Yeah, it's just shy of 104,000.
So
Yeah,
right around 50% of the
Does a great
budget.
job with revenue for their budget, so.
The program fills up fast, and it's, I know if we could, employ more counselors, I think it would be, we would be able to take more campers, during that time frame. But it is, with the current environment, it is hard. But the budget is pretty much straightforward. Contractually, the salaries in the first line. The part-time line is the summer counselors, which that is one of the areas that I did, pare some $5,000 off to bring it down to $73,000. But other than that, everything else, for the most part, is pretty much level funded.
What is the overtime?
The overtime is at certain times of the year. The director does work in the neighborhood of 32 to 35 hours.
Right.
But in the summertime, with concerts and the like, there is the occasion that she will work more than 40 hours in a week.
That's not captured in the 35 to 40 hours. In other words, if for 6 months, middle of the winter, she's working 35 or 32 hours.
By pay period. So if she works in excess of 40 hours in a pay period, she receives overtime. It's not a salaried position.
Oh, okay.
There are times of the year when it does exceed 40.
Times of the year that it's maybe 28 hours because it's snowy and nothing's going on.
I can't speak to that. I'm not sure.
Just asking.
Yep. The other area, concerts, inevitably will have, rain and at least to, cancel one or two. I think we did this past year. And then the summer transportation, we did, cut back a little bit as well. But again, overall, the budget is down from the previous year.
Do we shut power off completely out there on the end of the season?
No, we do not. We have security cameras now and the like. But also don't forget, we have the well that's out there, that we have 2 homes that we provide water off of as well.
Okay.
Hopefully next year that will
Go away.
With the Wilder Drive for the Old County project, but currently that's not the case.
Okay.
Anything else? No?
I don't think so.
All right, any questions from the budget committee members or Board of Selectmen?
Nope.
Okay. Well, it's good to see. It's amazing what she does with that budget, so, and it's reduced from last year, so. All right, anyone want to make a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve $209,947 for rec.
All right, motion by John, second.
I'll second.
Second by Bill. Any further discussion?
Good job,
All those in
Jen.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carries 5-0-0. Okay,
Thank you.
that's that. Hand it over to Mr. Coley for the tax rate, and we will pick up the rest of the budgets next week when the police
Next
chief
week.
comes in, right?
Police chief is coming in, and I'll reach out to the library.
Monday.
Yeah.
28th, next meeting.
We are gonna have we're going off of our every 2-week schedule. I'm gonna have a meeting next week for the police department and probably the remaining budgets.
And then the goal to try to get it over the budget committee, right?
Yes,
By the beginning of November, is that our goal?
yes, that is our goal. All right, Mr. Colby, tax rate.
The 2024 tax rate, so a lot of moving parts to this. But with the county finally being approved and the Timberlane assessment being finalized and the like, DRA had been working towards, and the big part of that is of the $16 million that the unassigned fund balance that the superintendent and the school board referred to, it allowed the assessment that the town of Plastow owes Oil District to be reduced by around $3 million. So that having been said, the local education part and the state portion of the overall tax rate are down a combined $2.20. So that combined with the county, but then also the town's share, which the town's share is made up of where we take off of the MS 232, which is a voted appropriations from last town meeting. This fall submitted the MS 434, which is the estimated revenues. We also have to cover the war service credits and other reductions. We put in an amount for overlay to come up with a amount of taxes that need to be raised through the property tax rate. That is then divided by the numbers off of the MS1, which is the assessed value. And preliminarily speaking, that rate comes in the neighborhood of $5.99 to $6 per thousand. So overall, and I'm recommending that includes the use of fund balance, which, to remind the board and those out there, when we set the budget last year, we said that we would at least put $200,000 towards the budget because of the increase with the ambulance. Other warrant articles were from fund balance, but then I'm recommending that we put an additional $73,795 towards this tax rate to bring it up to an even $400,000 that we're using from surplus. Our surplus at the end of 23 was in the neighborhood of $2.7 million. So 400,000 would bring us down to a little bit below 2.3 million. Now that's roughly 6.47% retention, which the fund balance policy is around 7%. So we're just a little bit shy of that, but not much. By utilizing 73,000 to help supplement, it would bring the local rate down to $5.98, but overall it would leave the town's rate at $20.72, which is $1.62 less overall than the 22.34 from the previous year, or just shy of 8% decrease. So basically, for every $100,000 of assessment, property tax bills would be down $162 over the prior year. So a $400,000 house would be roughly $648.
That's good.
Glad to see it's come down.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just so everybody's clear, nobody's seeing a check.
There is no check. That, the $16 million does go back through the calculation of the rate. So that rate is lower, so we collect less, so that they use that $18 million that I referred to earlier. They've already collected that, so it's basically taken off from what we're giving them.
Right.
So on your chart here, local education last year was 1469 per
Yes.
thousand.
Yep,
It's
that's correct.
down to
The
1244.
$12.44, down
That's what
$2.25.
Now, the $16 million didn't come directly to Plastow. It was split up amongst the 4 towns.
That
So
is correct.
that portion is what brought it down. What is that? $2.20.
Yep, $2.25.
$2.25.
Right, because what you need to do is when you look at the $16 million and you look at the tax rate, you've got to say, what are the factors that if we're going to level fund it, from one year to the next? And there was $1.6 million that was returned last year. So that, the 16 million then becomes 15 and a half. Then you have to look at how much the budget went up from a school district size, and that was $7.5 million. So if you take, roughly, 14 and a half minus 7.5 million, that means in order to level fund it, that's how much money you need to level fund. So anything above that, that's where the $3.1 million of that excess comes from.
And once again, so everyone hears it, roughly for on a home that's 400,000, what's the savings?
$162 per thousand, so it would be $648.
And just for playing devil's advocate, if we were to reduce the town's portion of the tax rate from 598 to 538, that's 60 cents.
60 cents.
That would wipe out our unassigned fund balance.
It wouldn't wipe it out, but it would significantly impact it.
And it would impact the town where we would have cash flow issues and would need to take a tax anticipation note.
That's correct.
Right? So we can't level fund.
It would be very
We
difficult
have to be smart about how much we're putting against it.
Yes.
Okay, what do you need from us on this?
I mean, if
To approve, or is
you
that?
can take a
that's
vote
it?
to approve, or if, is anybody opposed? Then, I will set it tomorrow with this, based on this recommendation.
Yeah.
So we're looking at 2072, right? Correct. I'll make a motion to set the tax rate at $20.72.
Second.
Wait, who seconded?
Darrell. Any discussion, any further discussion on the tax rate? The only thing I would say is, are we going to post this on the webpage once it's
Yes.
final and
Oh, yeah.
whatever? So
Absolutely.
that people can see that information.
Yeah, we'll get all the information posted once
Thank
it's
you.
final and set.
All righty.
Need all in favor?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries 5-0-0.
And just so we know.
Thank you, Greg.
Last year it was 2234 was the tax rate. Now this year it'll be 27.
Yep. Gone down $1.62. All right, next up is the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, we have a accounts payable manifest for the week of the 17th, October 17th and 25th. Draft minutes for the BOS meeting on October 7th, and 1 veteran's tax credit. Can I get a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Darrell, second by John. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All righty, on to the town manager's report.
It just keeps going.
Anything you want to add?
Nothing I want to add, no.
Okay. Selectmen's reports, anything to report? Darrell?
Nope.
John?
Well, we had a rec meeting recently. I know that they had a wonderful event over at the Vic with the apple pie social. The police attended, and a lot of the seniors had a good opportunity to meet some of the younger police officers that we have. Some of them left with throbbing hearts. Up and coming, we have the pumpkin lighting, which is on 10/26, and that's from 4 to 7. And on 10/31, toddler trick or treat. And as well as 10/31 is Halloween, so it's our regular trick or treat here in town. We're also working on November 11th is the Veterans Breakfast. That'll be held at the Vic Gary. That's sponsored by the Lions and run in conjunction with Post 34 here in Plastow. So if you are a veteran, come on over, enjoy your breakfast, and get to meet your fellow vets.
Public, it's even open to the public.
It's open to the public. And that's what I've got.
All right, thank you, John. Liz?
I was going to hit up on the Veterans Day. We had an Elder Affairs meeting. There will be a pumpkin pie social at the Vic Gary, but the pies are going to be donated by some people on the committee so that there's clear guidelines there. I don't think there's anything else.
Alrighty. Bill?
I also attended the rec meeting. And one thing we'll probably be posting out there shortly is for Old Home Day. We need volunteers, so we can get that together. Hopefully we'll have a meeting, I would say, next week. And we need volunteers so we can have Old Home Day.
Yeah, let me repeat that. We need volunteers or we won't have an Old Home Day.
That's what it's down to. We're only down to a couple volunteers on that right now, so we need help so that can take place. Everybody likes the event, so just a couple of hours, that's all we need during the year to help them.
All right, thank you, Bill. Anything else?
No.
I don't have anything. In other business, I recently have taken on a different role at my job, and it's taken over a lot of my time. So I need to step back as the chair. I'm going to stay on as a member, but I need to step back as a chair because it's consuming a lot of my time. So that being said, I need to resign from that leadership role, and I'm hoping someone else will take up the reins for me.
I know the one thing I want to say, thank you, Jay, because I know you've put
Thank you, Jay.
a lot of time and
Yep.
effort into it.
Absolutely.
You put a lot of time, and I know you work a lot of nights and weekends looking, going through everything. It's much appreciated.
Yeah.
You know,
I
sometimes
appreciate
life
that.
happens, but,
Yeah.
you know, the board wouldn't have been successful the last
It is.
several years without you helping out, and I'm glad you're still going to be with us because we need you.
Your reward
Absolutely.
waits for you in heaven.
So, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. I guess we need to pick a new chair. So,
I'd like to nominate Bill.
I'll second that.
nominate Bill, second from Liz. Any other nominations? Anyone else want it? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Bill abstains. All right. So that also brings up the chair, vice chair.
Okay,
So we need to do that as well.
I'd like to nominate Jonathan Gifford.
I'll second.
I've been waiting for this.
Yeah, I know you have. I've been dodging this bullet for a while.
I was actually surprised you didn't nominate him.
No.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Yes. All right. All those in favor of John as the vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
John abstains.
What's it been, 10 years you've been dodging it?
Knock it off.
And I'll just, do we need any non-public?
I do not feel that we do.
Okay, good. Anything else from the board?
Okay, good.
All
I just
right.
want to say thank you once again, Jay.
Yes,
Thank you, Jay.
absolutely.
Appreciate it. All right, I'll adjourn the meeting at 8:09.
So Jay, did you get a new job or are you